Hey everyone, welcome to the Orange and Black Insider. I am Anthony Cosenza, and this is our final show of 2016 in our inaugural season of this program. And we appreciate the support that we've been shown by all of the listeners out there. I am joined by my co-host, Scott Schultze. And I know, Scott, you and I had some kind of wacky schedules this week, but we're making it happen. It's week 17, and for a lot of people, it's kind of a mercy killing at this point that the Bengals are out of it. And, it's time to kind of be grateful. Christmas just is in the rearview mirror. Hanukkah is currently occurring, and then we have a new year to finally get to. What did you do over the holiday? Did you spend time with family? Did you stay local? What did you end up doing over Christmas?
We did a lot of local stuff, a lot of local family, kind of hang out. As some people may remember from one of the earlier podcasts, we have a young son, so it was mostly about him, kind of watching him open a ton of gifts and hoping I didn't get a ton of gifts because then this is more clutter. So it's as long as he gets the gifts and he's happy, he's opening them. That was kind of cool. So we did that, and in the midst of all that, tried to sneak in part of a Bengals game, which unfortunately was on 8:30 on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I think it was difficult for you and I before we went on the air. It was difficult for both of us to watch it. Unfortunately, a lot of the CJ staffers were kind of out of commission, and kudos to Cincy Jungle's Rebecca Toback and Jason Markham. They did a lot of work over Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, while a lot of us all have friend and or family obligations. So kudos to them for holding down the fort for the most part there. Unfortunately, I guess depending on how you look at it, if you didn't really get to watch a lot of the game like you and I, Scott, it might be fortunate that we didn't get to, because it wasn't the best showing by the Bengals once again. They got their 9th loss of the season to fall to 5-9-1, 12-10. Offense was anemic. The Bengals defense was doing some good things, but you kind of expected that against Tom Savage, who was getting his first career start in the NFL. And the Bengals had an opportunity to win it at the end, and Randy Bullock, the free agent kicker they brought in to replace Mike Nugent, missed a kick against his old team in Houston, and the Bengals ended up losing on Christmas Eve, which was not a great present for a lot of Bengals fans. I know you didn't see a ton of the game and a lot of X's and O's, and we've got a couple of players that we want to talk about, but just any general takeaways from this game? I mean, did it even really matter that they lost? Does it help them out just because of draft positioning next year? How are you feeling after this loss?
I'm one of the people that kind of, once you're out of it, I understand the team and the players are going to play to win every game, but as a fan who looks at the bigger picture and not the immediate, I kind of do look at draft positioning. So since the San Diego Chargers got beat, that's kind of the one the teams we're fighting for right now. So it was nice to, not nice, but if you're going to have a crap season, you might as well make something out of it. It was
right.
We kind of stayed pace with them, where we're just half a game back from them, and we stayed ahead of all the teams behind us. And I think right now the Bengals are 8th in the draft order, and we could pick anywhere from like 7 to 11. So right now we're kind of in the front of that curve. So that loss kind of helped us stay up there. I know one of the things we're talking about later in the podcast is the future of Marvin Lewis based on his past and present. And the one thing that was very interesting about the game that just, continually goes to the same old story with Marvin Lewis. It was another primetime loss. Again, they were beat by a first-year starter. I know Savage is not a rookie, but his first year, it was his first full game, second full game starting.
First full game starting, but he played majority of the game last week. Yeah, the week before, yeah.
And Brock Osweiler, back in week 2 or whatever that was, same story there. They, first-year starter, I think, had his best game of the year against the Bengals. That just seems to be the Bengals' MO with Marvin Lewis is, if they're in the prime time or they're playing a young quarterback, rookie quarterback, other than Johnny Manziel, we just cannot seem to win those games. Mm-hmm. And everything you kind of see, it just hasn't changed. 13 years or whatever. It's just the same story, which I think has driven a lot of fans to the point where they're saying, enough. We're going to get what we're going to get. We're ready for some change.
Yep, and that points to preparation. But as you said, we will be talking Marvin Lewis and his future with the team based on a number of different rumors and whatnot that have come out this past week. And we'll be addressing that at the end of the show. We have a lot of things to get to tonight, a lot of different segments. So we're excited about that. Just a quick side note, Scott, you mentioned the Chargers. There's two things that are kind of side notes with that. Number one, Hugh Jackson got his first win as the Browns head coach. Regardless of if you're a Bengals fan, regardless of your feelings on the Brown franchise, I think a lot of Bengals fans deep down pull for Hugh Jackson, except for when he plays against the Bengals now. But it was good to see that happen. And unfortunately for us, like myself, that live on the West Coast, I understand that the Chargers losing that game affected the schedule for the Bengals in 2017, where the Bengals may have been able to travel to San Diego next year, which I would have gone to. So that kind of stinks. But congratulations to Hugh Jackson on getting his first win of the year. Let's start kind of digging deeper, not so much into the Houston, the team's performance and who impressed and all that kind of stuff. But there was one specific impressive person, and there was one player who did not really impress. Both of them are on rental deals with the team and might look to latch onto the club in 2017. Obviously, Lewis and his return may have something to do with if those two players come back. Let's look on the positive side first. Wide receiver Brandon LaFell, he's had some real dry spells this year, but had 130 yards receiving and a critical touchdown last week against Houston on Christmas Eve. He's now, I believe, around 800 yards receiving, 6 touchdowns. He's putting together a pretty nice season. Now, maybe those numbers would have dipped a little bit had A.J. Green been healthier throughout the past month or so. Do you think Brandon LaFell has played himself into a contract for next year? Because you look at the team, they invested in Cody Core, they invested in Tyler Boyd. They're probably going to draft one, if not two, wide receivers again next year. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Brandon LaFell and him sticking around for 2017 and beyond?
I think a lot of it depends on, just like with Andrew Whitworth, what kind of contract the player's seeking versus what kind of contract the team wants to give. One concern with LaFell is he is already 30 years old. So that kind of magic 30 plateau you hear about with everyone who's not a kicker, they are going to start seeing some decline here and there. Another thing to consider is a team that he had been with for a while, New England, pretty much let him go without really trying to re-sign him. And the only receiver they really had was they had one, Julian Edelman, who is very injury prone. And they knew going in the year there were some issues with Gronkowski's health. So it seemed like here's a guy they really would have wanted to make some effort to keep. Instead, they let him walk. The Bengals kind of signed him after the first part of the free agency period. Got him for a pretty solid deal as far as the team's concerned. So, and I know a lot of New England fans when we signed him were kind of making comments. Oh man, this guy has horrible hands. He's horrible. You guys got stuck with him. But like you said, he has been pretty good. He's been very solid in a year where we have not had Eifert for much of the season, in the year when we lost Green. LaFell has definitely been a very good contributor. And I think the question is, if we're looking at like a 3-year deal, 4-year deal, something like or a big deal, kind of like they gave someone like Antonio Bryant or Laveranues Coles, I would definitely steer clear if they're looking another 1 year kind of a thing. Like, hey, you did a solid job. We'd like to have you for another year, because even if Boyd emerges, we still need a third receiver. Core's kind of was a lower drafted guy who didn't really catch a lot in college, so you don't really know if he's going to be ready in year 2. He probably won't. Wright seems to be getting less playing time every year, so he may not be anything more than what we have now. We still don't know what we have at tight end, and I think a lot of it depends on what they expect from that tight end position. Even though I know LaFell obviously doesn't play tight end, you need to have receivers out there. And with Eifert's injuries, what are we going to get from him? And then do we really see much development in Uzoma and Croft? Because Croft, who is the one drafted much higher, is the one who seems to get the least amount of playing time. So if they think that they can expect Eifert to be healthy and the backups to contribute, they may feel, okay, we have enough there. We have enough with Boyd and AJ Green coming back. Let's, this guy is 30. But then on the other hand, you kind of have the whole Bengals thing where, he's a decent veteran, not great, but we love our veterans. We love, and that probably depends too on who's coaching next year, who's running the team. But I think as long as Marvin's there, I would be surprised if they didn't offer him something. I'm hoping it's not a big deal, but yeah, if we can get him for a year, or maybe 2 years with the first guaranteed, I'd be fine with that, because he has been a solid contributor, and he's been, without him, it's kind of scary to think how bad they could have been this year.
Yeah, and for me, this is a double-edged sword. There are a lot of things I agree with you on a lot of that stuff, Scott. You look at him stepping up as a veteran guy and coming back in a big way after a poor season with the Patriots. Coming back in a pretty big way. Granted, all the injuries and all that stuff have helped him. It gives him more opportunities in the passing game. But again, I'm with you on price. I do think he has played himself into a contract more valuable than this rental deal that they got him on the cheap this year. So I think that has to be taken into account. But then you look at it and you go, okay, this team needs speed and it needs youth at the wide receiver position. So you probably look at the draft and you go, okay, maybe I would assume no later than round 3, the Bengals will be looking at a wide receiver that's in there. But then you go, okay, well, might you need veteran presence still with all these young guys still developing behind Green and potentially LaFell if he ends up coming there? Might you need that stability? And LaFell obviously has a growing rapport with Andy Dalton in the passing game. So that's one way to look at it. But then it's also the Marvin Lewis thing where he prefers to play the veterans and will sit the young guys. And if you get talented young guys, which the Bengals likely will this year in the draft, because as you mentioned, Scott, they'll likely be picking in the top 10 or so. So rounds 1 through 3, they should be getting some very talented players in that spot that they're allotted in. So I think if the price is right, I think it makes sense. I think guaranteed money and his age, and he's not the fastest guy, although he did outrun the entire Texans defense on Christmas Eve for his touchdown. He's not the fastest guy, but he's made some really nice plays for the Bengals this year, and he's kind of been a fringe, however you want to look at it, number 3, number 2, and even number 1 receiver now with Green being injured. So if the price is right, he wants to come back, I'm for it. I don't want to sacrifice time from a potentially talented younger guy in that could kind of bring the top off of a defense. But there's value to be had with LaFell, who's a veteran and has won a Super Bowl in this league, which obviously is something that locker rooms and coaches value with LaFell. Any additional thoughts, Scott?
Yeah, I think part of it is also going to be, since they went from a very good 12-4 year, which probably would have been better if Dalton was healthy, to a very abysmal 5-9-1 year. The team has to assess where they think the failures were. I think we have our own opinions. I'm sure a lot of the readers and the writers on Cincy Jungle have their own opinions. If the team feels that in any way the loss of Marvin Jones affected it, because that was someone they pretty much offered the same amount that Detroit did, but he left because he wanted the chance to replace Calvin Johnson, get more targets, more volume that he wouldn't have behind AJ Green. So if they feel that, hey, having someone like that really hurt us, we need that guy, I could see them maybe offering LaFell more than they should, only because they don't want to lose that second receiver. If they don't feel that Boyd is going to, if they aren't going to use Boyd in his second year more than they did this year.